can't find nothing on the radio.
You ready, Steve?
Welcome to Songology. He's Bruce.
He's Richard.
And this is another episode from our Song of the Day archives.
Enjoy.
Welcome back, Bruce. We're on our field trip. What's happening today?
Today I'm going to play for you the song that is number 186 on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, because this is the Queen of Soul in Muscle Shoals. And really, this was the beginning of Aretha Franklin's career. The song, by the way, is I Never Loved a Man the Way That I Love You. Now, the story goes that Aretha Franklin we've talked about Aretha before. She had been signed to Capitol Records. She has an amazing voice, but Capitol didn't really know what to do with her. And the impression that I get from what I've been able to dig up is it's almost like Capitol Records took Aretha Franklin and they were trying to do what had been done before with Ella Fitzgerald in the sort of, I'll move her in the direction of show tunes and Gershwin stuff and these sorts of things. And it wasn't really working for them. So Capitol let the contract run out, didn't renew it, but immediately Atlantic Records jumped on Aretha Franklin the minute that she became available, offered her a contract. She agreed. And so Jerry Wexler, having had such success sending Wilson Pickett down to Alabama, because by this time, not only has Pickett had a hit with Land of a Thousand Dances, but he's also had Mustang Sally and various other songs. 1967, he sends Aretha Franklin and her then husband, who was her manager as well, a guy by the name of Ted White. They send off to rural Alabama to record at Fame Studios. The story goes that they get into the studio, and again, in part because nobody knows anybody particularly, and in part because probably Aretha was feeling a bit of the pressure having had one failed music contract already. This was kind of your shot. This is your chance. There is also maybe an undercurrent of problem in her relationship. She never ever talks about her marriage to and divorce from Ted White, but as we will see shortly, he was an interesting guy. Quite the piece of work was Mr. White. They're in the studio. They spent a fair number of hours in the studio, and things were just really not working. And their various efforts to try different arrangements and so forth on different songs, it's not working. They had started to work on this song, I Never Loved a Man the Way That I Loved You, with a different arrangement, and it just was not coming together. Everybody was frustrated, tempers are starting to rise, things not good, and probably, in fairness to him, our old friend Rick Hall's probably not helping, being the incredibly meticulous and fairly demanding fellow that he is as a producer. So things are escalating, and it looks for a while like the whole session is not going to work. Then we have the moment where essentially Aretha Franklin's career gets started, and in many ways it starts with a keyboard player by the name of Spooner Oldham. Spooner was a session man, an Alabama boy, and right from that area again, and particularly played electric piano and organ. Well, he had been doing what was asked of him the whole time. And so when he sees that the tempers are flaring and so forth, he's got an idea. And so he just starts playing something. And I've taken the first bit of it off the song just to isolate it for you. So he starts playing this. Because he just says, well, why don't you just do this? And he starts playing this. Within a few bars, the other musicians are saying, oh, Spooner's got it. And so they start falling in. And so you get Hawkins picks up the beat on the drums, and a different fellow. It wasn't David Hood of the Swampers at that stage. David Hood is a multi-instrumentalist and was actually playing trombone on that session. So the bass player was a guy by the name of Tommy Cogbill. He picks up a bass line, all to what Spooner is doing. And they just keep going along with this little groove for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But they can see that Aretha really likes it, and so she starting to sway to the music. And then she just starts singing the song. And immediately they know, yeah, they've got something. It turns into, say, her first hit and really launches her career. However, it is not without problems and controversy, this little tune. Not for what you hear, but for what went on at the time. Because as they worked on the tune and time went on, they started to celebrate a little bit. And so somebody brought out some alcohol and everybody's having a drink, or many people were. And one of the horn players, a guy by the name of Ken Laxton, starts trying to chat up Aretha Franklin and Ted White. And he's trying to talk cool and hip and so forth. And their reaction is kind of negative. Basically, it was, well, who is this white guy talking smart and trying to talk jive with us kind of thing? And particularly Ted White was very angry. He makes this known to Jerry Wexler, who was there, and immediately Wexler brings it to Rick Hall's attention. Hall says, well, what do you want me to do? And Wexler says, I want you to fire him. So Rick Hall immediately goes out, goes to Ken Laxton and says, Ken, pack your stuff, you're out, you're done. But no, Ted White is not happy, is still not happy. And he pulls Aretha Franklin out of the session and they stomp back to the hotel. More Ted stomping than Aretha. Well, there's a little bit of concern about what to do. And Rick Hall says, well, I'll go over to the hotel. I'll smooth this over. This will be fine. Wexler says, don't go. Hall insists on going. He goes over. He knocks on the door at the hotel. Now, this is a sort of a hotel-motel kind of thing. And again, this information comes from that Muscle Shoals documentary I referred to a couple of episodes ago. And they showed it. It's the outside. It was one of those ones where the hallways were not interior. They were sort of exterior to the building with railings along the outside.
Yep.
So Rick Hall goes to Aretha and Ted's door, knocks on the door, tries to have a discussion with Ted. Very rapidly, things get out of hand. Tempers flare. And so the next thing you have is a fist fight on the balcony between Rick Hall and Ted White. Which culminates in the two of them trying to throw each other over the balcony railing. Now, neither of them succeeded, fortunately. But Rick left and Ted left. Aretha did not know what to do. She spent the night there, still wondering, not having heard from her husband, and eventually decided, well, I got to get out of here. I mean, I haven't heard from him. I better go. And so she got a cab to the airport, where she found her husband, Ted White, who had already made his own arrangements, and she, quite understandably, reacted pretty negatively to that, because, hey, you were going to leave me here in rural Alabama.
Yeah.
So, now she doesn't talk much about, say, her relationship and so forth, but she did divorce Mr. White within a couple of years. Now, Jerry Wexler knew he was on to something. Aretha was very, very happy with the musicians and so forth. But he was not coming back down to Alabama, and this led to an argument and a rift between Wexler and Hall that ultimately led to more problems for Rick Hall. But basically, Wexler said, in the course of an argument between them, Wexler said, you're finished. I'm going to finish you. And Hall said, no way. I'm going to beat you. And Wexler says, how are you going to do that? And Hall says, you're an old man. I'm going to outlast you. So Wexler departs back to New York, but very shortly thereafter, the call comes, and so the Swampers are given an all-expense-paid trip to New York to go up to the Atlantic Studios up there and finish Aretha's album. Most of the songs that we think of as Aretha Franklin's hits, particularly a song like Respect, a signature tune for her.
Yeah.
The band backing her on all of that are these good old boys from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So it all starts for the Queen of Soul down there in Fame Studios with this song, I Never Loved a Man the Way That I Love You.
And as usual, I have to stop it right there due to the wonderful world of fair use rules. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. You can visit us on Facebook or head over to our website, songology.ca. Now, here's your chance to listen to the music or go on to the next episode.